talk about some of the things that you've written about lately.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, you wrote about seniors having sex.
Yeah. I went to Woodhull Freedom Foundation's annual summit, and they were promoting Jessica Drake's new. So Jessica Drake is a porn star who has a whole line of educational films through Wicked Pictures, and every one of those is like a sexually explicit instructional video. So there's like the instructional video for how to have anal sex and how to have a threesome and how to do, I don't know, all sorts of things. And she recently did one on senior sex and how senior people have sex, which meant that she recruited 4 seniors who were around 70 to be in this video.
A how-to?
Yeah.
Like what kind of tips?
Yeah, so they brought in Joan Price, who has written now, I think, 5 books on senior sex, which started when she was a senior and fell in love, and she started writing about having a romantic and sexual relationship in her senior years. And so she's written a lot of self-help books for seniors about things that seniors deal with. So one of the biggest things, because I interviewed her for the podcast and for the column, but one of the biggest things she said is that seniors can't count on rock hard erections. So how do you have sex that's not erection focused or not penetration focused? How do seniors incorporate sex toys? She actually is a sex toy reviewer from a senior perspective. And when asking her about that, she said, well, sex toys for seniors have to be ergonomic. They can't, you have arthritis and things like that. So you need to be able to take that into account.
May I interrupt for a quick second? And it's not, don't worry, I'm not ready to crush that yet. Could you reintroduce our guest? We lost the feed at the beginning. We're running now, just so the people who are tuning in know who we have. Lisa, I'm sorry.
Way to go, Josh.
World all-star producer.
So this is Jessi Sage. She's our sex and social justice peep show columnist. She's with us today talking about her columns and her podcast. We're also accepting calls. If any callers would like to call in and ask Jessi a question anonymously, we're happy to have them. And we're talking about some of Jessi's recent columns, including senior sex.
Yeah, and so anyways, going back to senior sex toys. Yeah. No, she was just saying that there's different things that seniors have to take into consideration when they're having sex, but also when they're choosing toys. And one of the things she said that I haven't ever thought about was the controls for toys, if they have controls, need to be able to be read without reading glasses, things like that. So she has a whole career now around that. And I also talked to the couple that was in the movie, or one of the couples that was in the movie.
So they're actually having sex?
They're actually having sex in the movie, and it was premiered at Woodhull, and they were there. And so I got to ask them about what it was like to watch themselves have sex on, mega
So what was
screens.
It like?
Well, they're exhibitionists and swingers, so they're not new to having sex in front of people, but they are new to watching people watch them have sex on big screens. So
did it give you hope, like, I'm going to have a sexual life after 50?
Yeah, absolutely. And they were so sweet. Like, I found the movie to be really touching. It was really sweet, and it was really touching, and to watch the way that they interacted was really nice. So I don't know, I thought it was good. And
did you find it sexy?
Yeah, actually I did. Yeah. Yeah. I'd never seen people older than, I don't know, in their 40s or 50s, like, have sex. So that was really interesting. I mean, I am interested in people's sex lives, obviously. So
you also wrote about this week tips for college students. So college freshmen, people who are leaving home for the first time and going to school and finally having the chance to explore their sexuality without their parents' supervision around. What kind of tips did you give?
That was a really fun thing to do because I crowdsourced those tips, and people left so many good ones. People left tips about drinking, to watch your drinks, make sure you're not being roofied, not to drink too much, not to engage in sexual activity with new people while you or the other person is under the influence. But they also left tips about, like, masturbating to learn what you like about what you like in terms of your own sexual preferences, not relying on another person to make you feel whole, but instead, like, coming to a relationship with what you want to get out of it. I don't know. People left a lot of advice.
Is there anything that you wish that you had known when you were younger that you know now?
I have a really weird past. No, and this is why I crowdsourced this one. I have to admit that I crowdsourced it because I didn't have like sexual adventures when I was in college. I got married to the person I started dating when I was 17. So I didn't go away to college, and I mean I did go to college, but I didn't ever live in dorms. I never went to parties. I was a philosophy major. I wrote massive amounts of papers. I didn't have that sort of college experience. So
I will say I didn't either, and it was because my mother had me when she was 19. My parents met in college. They got married, and she dropped out her sophomore year. She had really big goals, and she got pregnant with me instead. And I always had that in the back of my mind that wasn't going to happen to me. She turned out really great, and she's happy, and thank God I'm here. But
Right.
I didn't want to do that. So
yeah.
what about you, Josh? Anything that you wish you could tell your college freshman self?
Maybe be a little more adventurous in general. I thought I had everything figured out going into college, just like everything. I'll just do, and it was a cautious approach. Which, hey, that's safe and that's good. I'm still here. Nothing bad happened. But if you don't swing the bat, you're not going to hit any home runs. So it certainly wasn't like a desert wasteland of activity. But I think maybe a little more, a little more exploration and a little less anxiety. Maybe that this is not the biggest deal in the world, which is I think really kind of hard for anybody to process in any circumstance. Even older people maybe meeting for the first time. It's romantic situations are anxiety inducing. So I don't know how I would have told myself to actually relax a little bit more. I don't know what the words would be, but that's what I would hope I could convey,
That's
interesting.
Good advice to anyone, I think.
Yeah, and also that's something that came up several times in the crowdsourcing that I did, is that exact thing, and also to kind of relax about things because they're both not as big of a deal, but also like important. And how do you balance that kind of in between space?
All right, let's talk about play piggies.
Pay
piggies.
Pay piggies.
All right, I had it written down as play piggies. Yeah.
What do you want to know about pay piggies?
So what are they?
No, so I wrote a couple of weeks ago about financial domination, and financial domination is it's a kink in general. Like, actually, interestingly, after Fosta Sesta passed, FetLife, which is the website where people go on to find people who share their kinks, outlawed it because they thought it was sex work related. If you're going to be exchanging money in any way, there was a fear that was going to be read as sex work. So I say that because it exists just as a kink outside of sex work too. But within sex work, it's fairly big in the dominatrix and especially online dom communities. So financial dominatrixes or dominatrices or findoms tend to control their subs, not through bondage or through humiliation or through the things that or through things like that, but with money.
So these are really, really wealthy men.
No, not all of them are wealthy, which is really interesting. So, I mean, some of them are very wealthy, or some of them don't have other sorts of financial financial expenses or kids or things like that. But
they're giving these women access to their bank accounts.
To their money. So I work online, and this happens a lot. I actually get a fair number of requests from pay piggies or from people who are interested in financial domination, and that looks different for different people. So sometimes what they want is just for you to try to get more money from them. There's something sexy to them about that. Yeah, or even so I work on Night Flirt, which is a phone sex line, and people who are interested in financial domination will call and say, hey, your rate's $2 a minute. If I hang up, will you change your rate to $4 a minute because I want to feel like you're overcharging me or extorting me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Make it 6.
Is it sexual? Is that the turn on? Or is it just excitement? I guess there's a little bit of,
I mean,
crossover.
there's different ways. People, I mean, it's sexual in the sense that they're aroused by the power dynamic. Yeah. But I mean, do people get off by it? Sometimes, and sometimes it's just that they like feeling like a strong and powerful woman has more control over them. And so it looks like that sometimes. Sometimes it looks like for a lot of people who are in more like long-term relationships, what they want is for somebody, they give over their bank account information. I had a client once who what he wants me to do is he'll give me his PayPal login, and all he wants me to do is like I never take money out of his PayPal. I just threaten to do so until he like tips me. So I'll say, so I'll say like, if you don't give me, I want $70 to get my nails done, and if you don't just tip me and give me $70, I'm going to take it from your account. And he's like, oh, okay. And, then he like gives me, I get my nails done.
Can I interrupt and say, does it really cost $70 to get nails done?
Well, no, but the platform takes some of your money.
Okay.
You have to factor in
is
all
that
sorts
up
of
to
things.
the worker what they spend the money on, or do they sometimes? Does the client sometimes specify what they want you? I guess that would be giving you taking too much control over it, but.
Yeah.
This is one of the, I read the bulk of your columns and have to headline them. And I would have I would have never guessed that this, out of all the things, if somebody said, think of the, for you, the most off the wall thing you could think of that is
right.
I would have never guessed somebody spending your money would be one of them. So very interesting.
Okay, I actually have interviewed a lot of people about this. So I interviewed 2 specifically for the column, but I've also like de facto interviewed my own clients and asked them like, because I have a tendency to do that. What turns you on about this? Because if I don't understand what they want, it's like hard for me to give them what they want, right? So a lot of them have said that, money is power in our culture. So this is power play. As if somebody else takes control over your money, you're somehow submitting to them, you're giving over your power to them, and there's something that is erotic about that sort of submission, even physical submission or financial submission, feeling out of control or feeling like somebody can do something to you that you don't have a lot of control over. So
I will say I cannot relate to that.
No, I can't either. Yeah. No, I don't think I have enough, like honestly, I don't think I have enough money and power to like feel this way,
Right.
to eroticize this.
I'll ask Josh this question too, but I'll answer it first myself. The one that I related most to was the column on giantess porn. I'm like, I kind of want to be the giantess.
Yeah.
We had an illustrator, Ziola Jensen, illustrate a really great artwork for that piece where it was a giant lady.
I know, it was really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, and that was actually so fun. I've never done anything like that, but I've talked to a lot of people, and one of my friends, I actually saw her recently, she does the voiceover for a VR porn company that specializes in like giantess stuff.
And that's where men ask you to act out fantasies where they're really, really tiny.
Yeah.
And the woman is really, really large.
Yeah, which actually is connected to what we were saying with financial domination, right? There's different ways to be made small. Like to have your bank account emptied out, or to be made physically small, or to be humiliated in some way. Like they're all fairly connected.
A lot of this is humiliation.
Yeah, but it's interesting because some of it's like so specific. So when I think I put this in the column, but I almost died when I heard this, that one of the people I interviewed was saying that her client said that he wanted to be shrunk down into and to brush her teeth. And she was like, wait, so she asked really specific questions. So do you want like your body to be rigid and like your head to be the bristles that I like,
Good question.
rub on my teeth? Or do you want like to be standing in my mouth and like windshield wipers, like brushing my teeth with your hands?
So what was it?
I think he wanted to be like a rigid, and she would like hold his feet and then use his head like to brush her teeth. So
that's how I would do it too.
So another freaky one was speaking of the feet and the sex toy that was shaped like a foot.
Yeah.
With the vagina slit
That's
on the
so
bottom.
Weird. It doesn't even make any sense.
There was a couple that we found. There was a sex toy shaped like a foot with a vagina slit in the bottom of the foot. Mm-hmm. And there was one where the vagina was the stump of the foot. So it was like a foot was cut off and the vagina was on the stump.
Yeah.
So you'd be fucking the foot.
Right.
In the stump.
Yeah.
And we
No,
were
it
trying-
doesn't. It makes no
We were
sense.
trying to decide. We were asking around the office which would be better, the stump or the bottom of the foot. And I think everyone agreed that it would be better if there was 2 feet
Yeah, that's
with
what I
the
think
hole
too.
in the middle of the 2 feet together.
Right. I mean, because that's how you give a foot job, right? So
Unless you
would
have
It
a
want
looks
stump.
like it was designed by somebody who had no interest in
That's what I
foot
think.
like
Right.
well if you,
More like a
even
Halloween prop.
even I could conclude, yeah, like, well, if you're into the foot thing, that's what you want. You don't want like an alien footgina.
Right.
There are
Like-
there are necrophiliacs though.
Yeah, but that's not what it's supposed to be. It's
No,
supposed
yeah.
to be a foot fetish thing. But
Yeah.
then you would want the
Unless
feet,
you wanted to
right?
like, if you're doing the stump, then you're
Yeah.
holding and you could have access to the toes maybe.
Yeah. I asked foot fetishists what they think about this.
Josh is nodding his head. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, holding the stump.
And they don't think this makes any sense. Like the foot fetishist that I asked was saying this is a bad toy. It's designed in a way that doesn't even take into account what we actually are interested in feet.
So it
And
might,
foot
it might just be
fetishes
a
make a lot
novelty.
of sense to me. There's a
Okay.
lot of foot fetishists, and it makes a lot of sense. I get foot fetish.
Are there any fetishes that don't make sense to you? That you just don't understand? Or that freak you out?
I take people's fetishes like really seriously, like in the sense that I understand where most of them come from and spend a lot of time trying to understand where they come from. What doesn't
I'll
make
give
sense to
I'll
me?
give you an example.
Mhm.
I shared with you an email I got from somebody that emailed me just last week saying that they like to wear diapers around the house and
Mhm.
wanted us to write a story about them. I looked it up online. This
Yeah.
guy actually doesn't live in Pittsburgh, so I don't have any interest in that. But
Oh,
I
okay.
passed it by you, and you said that diaper fetishes are a thing.
Yeah.
But there was
You've never seen
one-
those videos of adults dressed up in diapers?
yeah, but I didn't know that it was real. I
No,
guess.
it
It
is real.
It didn't really connect
Yeah.
with me. But you said that there was a limit that you do with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do scat stuff. So, but
Some adult clients do, or adult sex workers do.
yeah. I mean, it's not allowed on any of the sites. You can get kicked off the sites for
Okay.
doing that. So,
Why is that?
weird things aren't allowed. I payment processors. Like the long question is that payment processors limit what sort of things that you can do. So if they decide that payment processors are concerned about sex work not for moralistic reasons, but because they're concerned with chargebacks. So and what this means is that somebody goes and buys like a bunch of my videos, and then suddenly his wife's like, oh no, like, what did you do? And then he's like, I didn't do that. And then calls the company and has all the money like put back on their card. So for that reason, a lot of these, like all processing of all adult content is really difficult. And so, and considered to be high risk by the bank, which is a whole nother like podcast, because there's a lot of political implications to this, but and also why we get like raked over the coals and they take like huge chunks of all the money that we make. But the
Do you consider them your what is it, pimps? Like
yes,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, these payment so different cam sites take 40, 50. StreamMate takes 70% of whatever you make, which is just one of the sites. Night Flirt, the one that I do most of my work on, takes around 30%. There are many vids. A lot of these take 30, 40, 50, up to 70% of what you
That's insane. Is
make.
it a level? I mean, do they have to cover like regulatory costs, or not that I'm saying?
Yeah,
It seems like that amount of money would supersede whatever you have to pay for like regulatory costs. But I'm just wondering, what do they have to cover if you run one of those?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with like what's considered to be high risk. But I also think that because there's a lot of payment processors that won't work with the adult industry at all, that means that they have to only like go to a few of them. And it also means that it's really hard to be independent. So a lot of my friends who have tried to set up their own sites where they sell their own clips or anything, to put a payment processor on that like you would if you were an artist or if you did anything else that accepted payments on your things, on your website, it becomes like almost impossible. So you have to go through these sites. Also, like Venmo and PayPal and all of these sites aren't amenable to adult performers. So we get our accounts shut down all the time. PayPal seizes funds of anyone, even if all of the activity was legal. So if I had, $500 in my PayPal account, which I do not, would be nice if I did, but, and they decided that they didn't like what I was doing, they could shut my account and just keep all of the money. And there's like no recourse for that.
So what if you're a
But-
night flirt? Can somebody tip you? Will that all the tip go to you, or do they also split?
No,
that?
they take 70%. They take 30%. Yeah.
So tip her really, really well.
Yeah. So, but that's the answer that's like the long and not very sexy answer to the question, which is that a lot of the credit card companies dictate the terms of what's allowed on the sites in order to protect themselves. So one of the things that's not allowed on any site that I've written a different article about that's not for the city paper is menstruation. So you can't show on cam sites or in porn clips or anything like period blood, which makes no sense at all to me.
Because that's also a fetish.
It's also the fetish, and it makes no sense, and it's something that like everybody like.
But can you show semen?
Yes,
So you
that's
can
the
show
problem.
semen, but not menstruation or scat.
Right.
Spit?
What?
Spit? Like
Yeah.
all it, like,
Yeah. I have a friend who her big thing in most of her videos is, I don't even know how she does this. Like, I'm not capable of doing this. Is like spitting into her tits.
I can't. Oh,
Good gesticulation for that.
I could not.
Real
have
visual aid.
Yeah, I thought it like hangs down.
So you're a sex worker and you talk on the phone. I want you to read this.
Speaking
in
of
your-
phone, let me pop in real quick again.
What?
Sorry. The connection is lost, so if anybody's trying to call with a question, can you give them a thing to tweet if they have questions?
Sure.
or-
Tweet us a question at PGH City Paper on Twitter.
Thank you.
So I have this thing and I want to hear your
Oh.
sexy phone voice. Will you read this to us? In your sexy phone voice.
Well,
Lisa knows how to make anybody feel uncomfortable.
Let's hear it.
no, I can't.
Turn us
no,
on,
now I'm
Jessie.
gonna be super embarrassed. So for the audience, this says, "Hey Jagovs, yin want to go downtown and that." See, the problem is I don't have a Pittsburgh accent, so I can't even
Make it sexy.
do this.
Make it sexy.
Here, hand it to me.
Okay, let's.
Oh no.
Hey, Jagoffs. Yins want to go downtown and that?
Ooh, that's sexy.
And have some intercourse?
I am not tipping you. You disappoint me, Jessie. So do you have a separate phone voice?
Okay, so you were talking to me about this yesterday, and I said to my husband who was sitting there while we were messaging, I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't have a phone voice. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You totally do. But I don't know how to just do it. So I'm not. No, I think it's about intonation. So often, most of the time, I have people call and they want to talk for a while just about life stuff, like what's going on in their lives and what they've been up to, especially with my regulars. They'll talk for a while about, I don't know, their job and what their move or whatever's going on with them. And then they'll eventually, before they get off the phone, want to like move into something that's sexier. And sometimes people are really specific about that. Like sometimes people will be like, okay, now can we do the sex thing? And there'll be these like abrupt changes. But sometimes people don't want to do that. And so if I can sense that they're trying to get there but don't want to come straight out with what they're saying, then I tend to change my voice. And that means I usually tend to start talking slower and drawing words out a little bit more. And that
Hey,
Hey.
Jago.
Yins want to go downtown.
That was pretty great. I'm a little turned on. So I think the one thing that was really interesting to me to find out, you mentioned that some wives will find out that their husbands called somebody and get upset and try to take off the charges. But you said that some wives actually encourage their husbands to call.
Yeah. Actually, it was really funny related to the city paper. I recently had somebody call me who's a Pittsburgh-based person, and a little bit later in the call, he was talking to me about issues he was having with his wife, and and how they were negotiating some sex-related things. And then he said, oh, yeah, my wife, when I told her I was calling you, she said blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh, what did she think about you calling me? And he said, oh, she reads your column. She's she's a fan of yours. So that was nice. So that was the only time I've had somebody say, like, actually, she knows exactly who you are, and we talked about it, and she said it was okay for me to call you and talk to you about this.
I think from reading your column, I would say that you are probably considered safe because you're pretty open that you're married.
Right.
And you're compassionate about your clients and your work. You care about people.
Yeah.
And you don't exploit them, which is nice. You will ask permission from people before you include them in the column.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're safe for people.
I hope so. I'd like to be safe for people. Yeah, but then I have other people who also say that their wives, want them to. Often what happens, and I'm stumbling a little bit here because there's lots of different reasons, and people have complicated relationships. But often people have fetishes or desires that their spouse doesn't want to meet for whatever reason. They're just not into it. So if you're a foot fetishist and your wife is like, I don't want to talk about feet, sometimes that makes people just kind of shut down and not do what they want to do. But sometimes people would be like, well, why don't you just go talk to somebody else who will talk to you about that?
So if you want to have sex with a foot stump and your wife won't act out on it, call Jessie.
Yeah, or anything. If you want me to squish you, if you want me to take all your money,
Brush your
then
teeth?
call.
Oh, yeah. My wife won't brush my teeth with me. What is her problem? One of your most popular columns was giving advice to men on how to be a good strip club customer. You also did a second column with advice for women and couples, but I would say that the one by men, advice for men, was like read twice as much at least. So what is some of the advice? What do men get wrong in strip clubs?
They don't tip enough. Like, they sit there and don't tip. And they often are too pushy or too touchy. Some of the things that I didn't even think about because I've never worked at a strip club, but talking to my friends who do, is that, and this makes sense to me because this happens on my phone lines as well, is they gossip about other workers, and that makes the dancers like really uncomfortable. So a lot of what they're trying to do is like bond with them by saying, oh, I really like you, you're so much better than that one. But how that comes across is you talk shit about us and I don't trust you, so that happens a lot, and people really don't like that.
You also told me something. My Facebook messages with Jessie are eye-opening because I hear a lot of things that don't make it into the column. And one of the things you told me that stripper told you that they didn't like is that a man, this is talking about like people that are too touchy, would like lick their nipples without permission. So some strippers put something on their nipples to deter it.
Yeah, and like the stuff that
like rubbing
parents,
alcohol.
yeah, or even the stuff that parents put on like their kids' thumbs to get them to not suck their thumbs anymore. I know people who've used those on their nipples, and they say like it doesn't matter, they still do it.
Men are freaks.
Yeah, that to me that seems like I don't know how long it takes for that salve to take effect. But maybe a quick slap to the face or a hey, let's not do that.
Right.
No, thank you. Might be a little quicker than an oil that burns the mouth.
Yeah.
And just don't do that.
Just don't do
Just
that.
don't do it.
I mean, yeah. So those sorts of things, like being touching without permission, not tipping, gossiping.
What about a couple that's going to a strip club for the first time?
Yeah, so a lot of the feedback that I got about couples was that women actually tend to be more aggressive when they're together, like when they go in private rooms as a couple, because a lot of it is often viewed, or a lot of it is like a show for the male partner, is that women tend to be aggressive with the dancers, and they don't like that, especially when it comes across as not particularly genuine or about them, but as a show for their husband or their boyfriend or something like that. So that was one of the bigger things. Also, a lot of them talked about how women interfere with the show by trying to dance themselves or by flirting with male customers, which takes away from. And some people took issue with that. Like some people who read the column said, I can't see that happening. What I see is people who can't pay stage fees, like women who can't pay stage fees for whatever reason, like coming in and trying to like have their own hustle there. That may be true, but I think that there's also women who just end up
So I would say if a
behaving
woman,
like they're in any bar.
yeah, if a woman wants to explore dancing or something for men, it
Let's
might
say
be-
her name is Lisa.
no, that wouldn't. No. Anyway,
That's the
I
one
would
form of
say-
sex work. That's probably the last form of sex work I would do. Not because I'm amazed by strippers. I find the work that they do amazing, but I could not do it.
I was going to say that I think that you might advise them to go to like a private sex club instead.
Yeah.
You wrote about one of the. There's one in Pittsburgh, if people don't know, where you go and you can have sex with strangers. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a swinger club / sex club.
But there's no financial transaction in that,
No.
correct?
No,
Okay.
but I mean, if a woman is like going with her partner to a strip club and is trying to like take over the stage, and
Right.
because she wants to do that, if she's an exhibitionist,
Yeah.
and she wants to explore that, private sex club might be more her speed
Yeah.
to try that out.
Yeah.
So you had advice for people going to one of those for the first time too.
Yeah.
Any advice? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, now I'm trying to remember what is all the advice I've given in all of my columns. I think that the main thing I was thinking about there is not feeling like you have to do something just because you're there. And the reason that I wanted to talk about that is that I've had a lot of people say to me that they're curious about going to a place like that, but they're afraid because they don't know if they're ready to do something like that. And my thought about that is that you don't have to do anything. You could just go. You could
some
go
people like
and
to just watch.
yeah, you could go. You could get a feel for the room. You could see what people are doing, and that's totally reasonable. Or you could do whatever it is that you feel like doing. You could also participate, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think I think one of the better things to do is to go in and have an idea of what it is that you are willing to do and not willing to do, and be really clear about like what those boundaries are. I also think it's important if you go with your partner to talk about that with your partner, and also maybe have some sort of like signaling, because you don't know what's going to happen. So if you guys both go in there and one person is really into something and wants to know if they can go ahead and pursue a interaction with somebody else, there needs to be you should work out some way to signal that.
Do you enjoy those clubs?
Yeah, I do. I this is like kind of personal, I guess, but no, my husband is like an exhibitionist, and I am into seeing him be excited, and so he gets excited by the exhibitionist part of it, and so it's very fun for me to like vibe off of that energy.
And you and your husband make videos together, is that right?
We do, yeah.
So you're okay with people watching you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you? I'll ask you a personal question.
Yeah.
You, even though I've seen like pictures of you naked, you always have one thing that you're wearing, and then that's the signature lipstick that you have on. Do you feel naked without the lipstick?
Yeah, I love red lipstick.
Like in the middle of like making out with somebody, do you ever reapply the lipstick?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
Now you're gonna start taking
Now
it
I'll be
with you.
self-conscious about my lipstick. That's funny that you noticed that. I'm always surprised that people notice my lipstick, actually, because I don't think about it very much. It's so like automatic to
It's
me.
just a part of you now.
Yeah, and I've been wearing this like kind of red lipstick since I was like 18.
Josh, what in Jessie's columns has anything ever shocked you?
Shocking? I don't think so. Like I said earlier, I believe that financial one was like blew my mind. I'm humiliated and lose money all the time at the casino, and
it's not a
I'm
turn
never
on.
turned on. Very rarely, at least. Going home with my head hung low. No, shocking? I don't think so. I think the thing that kind of ties them all together thematically is like communication. That seems to pop in there a lot, and I think that's a very important takeaway for not only any kind of romantic or sexual thing, but just life. Like everything's better if your communication's good. Yeah. So like the more you work on that, the better everything's going to be. I'm just thinking of the one column that was, I think, communicate your needs. How, if you wanted to use a sex worker, one of the most important things to do is to communicate your needs to them before you get started. I think that happens that's the basis of any good relationship, whether it's, transactional or you're married or you're friends. No, I don't really need to communicate your sexual needs to every friend of yours. But
that's been actually for me, like one of the most remarkable things about getting into this work is that I talk to a lot of people, and many say, I don't actually know how to tell my spouse that I'm interested in X, Y, or Z. And it's surprising to me how many people are in really, really long relationships where they never talk about what it is that they actually want. And a lot of it is working off assumptions like, I don't think that my partner would be into this, so I don't want to tell them. And my first response to that, I always think, but how do you know? What if you're both sitting there thinking, I wish we could do this thing, but you won't talk about it, and then it never happens.
They need that weird device with the little button that lights up.
Oh, no, they do not need that.
Tell us what that is.
Yeah, there was this, what was it called? Like Love Sense or something like that?
I can't remember.
I think it was something.
It was a bad idea. So
No,
it probably had
Love
a bad
Sense
name.
is something different. What it was, I can't remember what it was called, but one week I wrote about this Kickstarter that came out that there was a button, or there was little, I don't know, pods that you could put on each side of the bed, and you would hit a button if you were in the mood for sex, and your partner wouldn't see that unless they also hit a button. So if both of you guys said that you wanted to have sex, then it would indicate, the lights would come on, and then you would know, like, okay, both of us are into it. So then you would never have to approach one another about sex ever, and you wouldn't have to talk about it.
I imagine that for many men, that light would just always be on. Like 24/7.
Just put a paperweight on the button.
No, I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I think this is a bad idea for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that you actually need to be able to communicate those things. And the other thing is, not everybody is in the mood without anything happening at all. I mean, actually, going back to Joan Price, who wrote all the books about senior sex, one of the things that she said that I thought was really valuable is that there are people who, I can't remember the exact phraseology that she used, but who are just turned on with nothing happening, and then there's people who become turned on once you get into something, right? So we shouldn't mistake like not ever wanting to have sex with not being in the mood prior to like starting anything. And so I don't know, for people who need a little bit of foreplay or a little bit of connection or some time together before they can get in the mood, I don't know, wouldn't that button just kill that? Kill sex?
What you just said reminded me a little bit about one of your other columns on demisexuals, which is defined as people that don't get turned on unless they have
like some sort of emotional
connection to somebody. You want to tell us about that? You found out that a lot of different people have different definitions.
Yeah, I mean, this was actually interesting to me, this working on this, and the reception of it was really interesting to me too, because there were a lot of young people who were felt very seen, like, oh, they really relate to this. And there were another generation of people who were less interested, I think, in identity politics, who were like, isn't this just kind of how people work? Like, how is this a category?
Yeah, that kind of that crossed my mind a little bit, because it was like I felt that it was very relatable, and I thought a lot of people would relate to it. So I thought, wow, we're really nuancing this, but if that helps somebody who feels uncomfortable get through something, then fine, do it. It doesn't, it's just leave it. If you think it's going to bother you, just let it go. It's not doing anything to you. Just
right. Well, so to get back to it, but demisexual, or the definition of demisexuality is that you are only sexually attracted to people once you have some sort of emotional connection. And for some of the people that I talk to, they're like, that could mean a lot of different things. So it's not as if I need to be in a long-term monogamous relationship for me to be turned on. It could be that I develop a connection with somebody that night. I meet them and we connect really well and there's a good rapport, and then I want to have sex with somebody. Or it could be like more connected than that. So I think it was interesting because older people didn't seem to think that could actually be an identity category, and younger people were like, I've been waiting for this.
I read it and I was like, and I told you, and I'm like, I relate to this, and you're like, me too. And
Yeah.
we're both like, is this something new? Like,
Right.
I mean, this is how I felt all my life.
Right. I know, because I've never ever looked at a stranger and thought like, oh, I'd really like to have sex with that person. It's not something that makes any sense to me. But yeah, I think my thought about it after some reflection is that I think maybe one of the reasons that younger people connect with it so much is they're like bombarded with media about hookup culture, which leads them to think that everybody is hooking up all the time. And it's nice to have something like a term to say, oh, I'm actually not into that. I'm demi. So therefore, I don't want to participate in this culture like this. And I think that can be useful. I think it depends on your context, whether that's a useful term to you or not.
I'm guessing a demi would have no interest in visiting, like, the swinger club.
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily think that. I would just think that, I mean, it depends on what you want to get out of a swinger club. I mean, some people who go to swinger clubs don't swing. They hook up with their own partner, but they like to do it in a public space. Right, but you have emotional
connection with your partner.
Yeah.
So, like, you wouldn't go there as a single person, but
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Seems like a sex club and a swinger club. Like everybody's got to be hugely open-minded there. But I also wonder if you were somebody who just went to watch, do you get judged? I mean, we're all still human, like.
Yeah.
Are the people who are like,
so. Yeah, no,
I'm planning my trip right now.
No, I don't think so.
I was just wondering when you said you were mentioning earlier, if that's your thing, you just want to go. I'm wondering, are the people who are like huge exhibitionists doing everything that they want to do?
Yeah.
Kind of like
who's that
casting
guy?
a side eye to the creeper
That's
in the corner.
masturbating in every
Creeper's
room.
not a good word, but the person not participating.
That's an interesting thing because I was actually thinking about this recently a time that I was at one of these places where there was a guy who was there, and so there are some norms. So there was a guy that was there and he was watching, he was one of the voyeurs, and he was masturbating, and people were like really weirded out by the fact that he was watching and he was masturbating. And that actually struck me as weird because I was like, okay, people are watching and they're getting off on it, and then they're like having sex with other people with that energy. So why can't you have like solo sex with that energy too? So there are like some norms and ways in which people judge other people, but I don't think that just being in the space is something that causes a lot of judgment. People cast judgment about.
You said that you have been out in public and people have recognized you from your column. Who are your readers, do you think? Think they're mostly women, men?
I don't know. I should ask you that. I don't actually know.
You've had
surprising.
women tell you that they read your column.
Yeah, I have people reach out. I don't know who reads it. I feel like there's more people than I think because sometimes, this was actually funny. I was at with some colleagues who are not sex work colleagues, but academic colleagues recently, and we were standing around and we were talking about something, and one of the guys who was there was mentioned something that I didn't know what it was, like some sort of sexual term, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, and the other woman who was standing there was like, oh, that's right, I read in the paper one time that you're vanilla. And it was funny because I was like, wow, I didn't even know that these people read this. And it's funny to me that every once in a while things that I write will pop up.
Does that freak you out or do you like it?
No, it doesn't freak me out. It's just kind of strange.
I also think that it's funny that Jessie promotes herself as somebody that is very vanilla. But you'll go have sex in a swinger club. Like,
Okay.
that is not vanilla to me. You're very adventurous.
Yeah, I am. I know, and I think that's actually I think there's something interesting about that. So, I feel like, BDSM has shaped a lot of the way that we like think about what's vanilla and like what's not vanilla.
What is not vanilla? Like,
because often when I talk, people will be like, "No, that's really kinky. Like the things that you like are kinky," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." But what's not
maybe
vanilla?
you're vanilla in the
I'm vanilla in the power
world
exchange sort of way.
Sex workers, maybe.
No, that's actually, yeah. That's actually, I think, fairly interesting because there's a lot of sex workers who actually, there's a lot of asexual sex workers, interestingly.
So they're acting, you think?
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
you
it's a
act,
job.
but but you enjoy your work.
I do, yeah.
Do asexual people enjoy their work?
Yeah, because there's a lot of different reasons to enjoy sex, and I think that we need to think about sex in ways that are like much more expansive, right? So people enjoy sex because they enjoy the sensations of sex, but they also enjoy like seeing other people having good experiences or pleasuring other people or watching them find out things about themselves. It's also like just interesting to get to know people on a more intimate level than you normally do. People like being able to support themselves. Like there's all sorts of reasons to like it. And then there's also all sorts of reasons to not like it. You know, not all sex workers like their jobs, but not all sex workers don't. You know, you can't really make generalizations.
So the topics for Jessie's column, she comes up with the majority of them herself. I give her some ideas sometimes. Our staff gives ideas. And we get people writing in. So if you have anything that you want to ask a question to, feel free to email us at info@pghcitypaper.com. You could tweet us. But one of the things that I just completely lost my track. Oh, no, I just came up with, as you're talking, I think a really great column might be asexual sex.
Yeah.
To talk to them about, like, what, if you are asexual or if your partner is asexual,
Right.
how can you have a sexual relationship where you both can enjoy it? So
Right.
work on that.
Yeah, I'll think about that. Yeah. No, for reasons that I just said, that I think people can enjoy sex that's not intrinsically about their own desire, for reasons that aren't just about their own desire.
So one thing that a column that our staff talked to you about before you wrote about was selling used panties.
Yeah.
So that was super interesting, and you came up with a lot of things that we never would have thought about by talking to people who actually do this.
Right. Yeah, it's actually I wrote another like bigger piece after that for Vice. I co-wrote it with PJ, but yeah, it was actually really interesting to talk to people who do a lot of panty sales. So part of the thing that we found out, or I found out for the column, and that is that it's really hard to sell panties. It's like it's hard in the sense that people want panties because you have some sort of presence, or it's coming out of like fandom, or they're particularly interested in like what you're doing. They want it to be connected to an experience they had with you. Some people who work as escorts were saying that at the end of some date, they've had people who want to like take home their panties for an extra fee to like remember what happened. People will sell the panties that they're wearing in clips. So ManyVids is one of the platforms that you can sell clips. Often when you put up a clip, you can also in your store say, these are the panties that went with this particular video if you
How much do
want to buy
panties
these.
go for?
Like $75 or
Oof.
something.
Oof. Josh is getting out Ziploc bags right now.
Right. You want these Hanes Costco brand
No, it's
boxers
more,
of briefs, Josh.
a box of briefs.
Oh.
It's
Yeah.
more complicated though, because clients often have specific requirements for how long they want panties worn, if they want them worn 2 or 3 days.
It's not
or
just
4
because
days.
they're interested in like sniffing dirty panties. They want it connected to the sex worker.
Right.
But
yeah.
some people probably do want that, right? I read this, maybe I'm making this up. Maybe I don't think so, though. I feel like, doesn't Japan have like dirty panty vending machines?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Or they did. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
if they
At
still
some
do
point
or-
they did, yeah.
Yeah.
But
at
I
some point
wonder
they
if
did.
maybe each of them come with like a fake
bio?
story. Yeah, a bio. I mean, yeah.
Right. A friend of mine actually wrote erotic stories that connected them to the panties, and would sell the second half of the story with the panties. So
For an extra fee.
No, like with the panties. Like, so part of the sales was I started this story, and if you want the rest of the story and the
Oh,
panties,
okay.
you have to buy the panties. And
That's really smart.
yeah.
Choose your own adventure panty purchase.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but people buy all sorts of things. They buy panties. They also buy shoes, used shoes, bodily fluids.
Q-tips.
Yeah.
Oh, Band-Aids.
Pubic hair. All sorts of things.
Oh.
Yeah.
Band-Aids. Really?
Tampons. Lots.
Used tuna can, emptied out.
No.
No?
No,
That's
just
not,
stuff.
you're not into that?
No.
Okay.
No, people are into all sorts of things, and but I think that what you said is right. They want to connect to a person that they'll probably never meet.
One of the things, though, about used panties that freaks some people out is the DNA.
Yeah.
So, like, you sell a used panty and you don't know who's on the other side of it. Maybe they're not like a panty fetishist. Maybe they're going to commit a crime and rub your used panties all over the crime scene, so it looks like you were the killer.
I'm not a biologist, so I'm not totally sure how that would work. But yeah,
I'm
I think there are
fascinated by
people
it.
who are freaked out about that.
Just like
I
people are weird about
actually-
DNA tests.
I actually got the USPS to issue a statement, though, that you are allowed to sell used or you are allowed to ship used panties, because there was a lot of contention about whether that
Was legal.
breaks
Yeah.
rules or is legal. But what they said, and I thought this was funny, they actually said yes, as long as it's sealed and there's no potent smell. So there you go. It's allowed.
There's a new job at the Postal Service now.
You know,
Envelope sniffer.
wonder if we could have City Paper branded panties.
CP for your pee-pee?
Oh, God.
Sorry, I ruined the show.
Or, I mean, that was clever.
See, a year ago before you started, I was so squeamish about all of this stuff, and I could not have this conversation. But you have, like, you've calmed me to this.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's
Little
good.
surprises me anymore. Though I will say some of it does gross me out, but to each his own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not easily grossed out.
Yes, I know this. you do some freaky shit with your clients.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
probably true.
you're getting off in the other room while your husband is there with the kids. It's amazing.
Well, no, I don't do it with the kids.
Well, you have kids.
I mean, I
though.
do have to say
Yes.
that.
No, but I mean, like, you're in your own private
Yeah.
space. You also started sex work while you were working in an office.
I did.
So you got off in a cubicle. Is that
Yes,
right?
and thank you. Now nobody will ever hire me for a job.
Oh, you don't want one of those.
No, you're right. I don't.
Yeah, take a look out behind you. Is that what you want? Oh.
It was funny. I was interviewing somebody yesterday for the podcast, and she was like talking about Victoria Woodhull, and she was like, the 8-hour workday, she fought for that, and she's like, not like for me and you, but for like everybody else. I was like, yeah, we don't go to work.
What else do you have coming up in your podcast?
So we have a series of interviews from the Woodhull Freedom Foundation. So we just had the one come out about Jessica Drake's video. We have one coming out in the next couple of days. We interviewed the lead attorney for the Woodhull versus the United States for the Fosta Sesta case. So they're suing the U.S. government about Fosta Sesta, which is the internet regulation that fucked over all the sex workers. So we're interviewing him. We also have I'm trying to think of we have some parents who are in a co-parenting situation, and they're all sex workers, and we talk to them about how they run their household as sex working parents. So we have an episode on being a sex worker and being parents, and how to negotiate those things. A bunch of different stuff coming up.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So one of the things, our cover story this week is on Recovery Month. We're going to do some Recovery Month coverage throughout the month. I'm really interested in sex after recovery or while you're going through recovery. So if anyone has any story topic ideas for Jessie, feel free to send them in. I know that when you're going through the 12 steps, I think that you're supposed to avoid it.
You're supposed to
the
avoid
beginning.
new romantic connections for a year. And it's actually, I think I'm really interested in this because I've heard a lot of women in particular say that the 12-step programs feel very masculine in the way that they relate to a lot of things. And so cutting off sexual and emotional connections maybe isn't what's best for everybody. But I'm interested in this. Like, I don't have an opinion about this at this point. I'm just interested in how people negotiate like sex during recovery.
Yeah, a lot of things are like, you don't know about it when you get a question from a reader, and you'll reach out to experts for it. And I think that's, you're learning along the way with this column, and I think that's really great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that you proposed that I know nothing about whatsoever was weed lube. And I had to reach out to people who are making and selling weed lube and using it and find out what experiences they had. So
that was for a marijuana issue, and you found out that I don't believe that it's here. Like,
well, you can't do it with CBD. No, with THC. You can't do it with THC.
There are CBD oil lubes you can use and buy in Pennsylvania, but they sell them in the West Coast, but you cannot ship it to Pennsylvania yet because it's illegal. Yeah.
So they have them in Washington State and in California, and you can go there and you can buy them, but you can't buy them. You can't ship them here. So I've never used that. I don't know if it's any good or not. I found out, though, and I thought this was really interesting, that some of the people who use that actually dip their tampons in it, and it helps with cramps.
I would try that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I thought
Josh,
it was interesting.
Would you?
Why not?
Yeah.
Try everything once.
Yeah.
Right?
Dip your tampon in it. Yeah. Stick it up your nose.
Actually, I heard it's kind of complicated. So the person who I was talking to was talking about how she cooks it in like a crock pot and extracts things and then soaks her tampons in there, and it's a whole procedure.
It's like tampon soup.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah. No, that's outside of my area of expertise, but it's interesting and kind of goes back to what you're saying in terms of I get to talk to a lot of interesting people about things that I don't know about.
What was your favorite column in the past year?
I think that the one that was most meaningful to me is the one that I wrote to the wives of clients for the Valentine's Day issue, because I had so many people reach out to me after that and just say that it was really they really felt seen in that, and it was really meaningful to them. So for me, that was the most powerful one, just by the responses that I got from it.
We'll tweet out the link to that if you want to read that at PGH City Paper on Twitter. So we're about done. I want to have you give one more chance to read this.
Redeem yourself.
I really can't do this.
Yes, you can.
This is so
Here
embarrassing. Okay.
We won't look.
All right.
Come on.
All right. Hey, Jagovs. Jens want to go downtown and at.
One more time, slower.
Okay. I've never actually said most of these words. I'm from California, so this is so weird to me. Hey, Jagoffs. Yen wanna. Yes.
It's Jens, Jessie.
Jens. I know.
Jens.
See, this is so hard for me. Hey, Jag. I can't do it. It's so.
One more.
Okay,
chance.
one more time. Hey, Jagovs. Jens want to go downtown and at?
Ooh, baby. Yes. On that note, we're going to end the show. Tune in Monday for Lynn, Cullen, and come back with us next Friday for City Paper Live.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
Jessie.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Josh.
Welcome.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.